The sun rose gently over the quiet village, spilling golden light across the fields where wildflowers swayed in the morning breeze. Eli, a small boy with bright eyes and an inquisitive heart, wandered through the familiar paths, dreaming of adventures far beyond the village. His best friend, Sam, ever daring and lively, ran ahead, laughing as he jumped over stones and leapt across tiny streams. Together, they were inseparable, exploring forests, climbing trees, and imagining grand quests in every shadow and glade. One afternoon, curiosity led them deeper into the forest than ever before. Sunlight barely touched the forest floor, and the air was cool and damp with the scent of moss and earth. Amidst twisted vines and ancient oaks, they discovered an old stone well, long forgotten and covered in creeping green. Sam, eyes wide with wonder, leaned over to peer into the darkness, and in an instant, his foot slipped. A scream echoed as he fell into the well, leaving Eli frozen with shock. The darkness swallowed the sound, and Eli's heart pounded. "Sam, hold on, I'll get you," he cried, his voice bouncing off the stone walls. A trembling reply came. I can't climb out." Eli ran toward the village, calling desperately for help. The villagers shook their heads, unsure, hesitant, dismissing his cries. "He couldn't have fallen there," some whispered. "It's an old, unused well," said others. Eli's chest tightened with frustration and fear, but he realized he had no choice. He alone must act. Rushing back to the well, Eli gathered an old rope tangled in weeds, securing one end to a sturdy tree. He tied the other around his waist, taking a deep breath. The walls of the well were slippery and cold, moss brushing against his hands as he lowered himself into the darkness. Every movement demanded focus. Every step tested his courage. Halfway down, his foot slipped, sending a jolt of fear through him, yet he gritted his teeth and pressed on. Finally, he reached Sam, who stood knee-deep in water, eyes wide with relief. "It's okay, Sam. I've got you," Eli said, lifting his friend carefully. The climb back up was grueling. The rope strained under their combined weight, and Eli's muscles screamed, but step by step they ascended toward the light. When their feet finally touched solid ground, the village gathered stunned by the sight of the boys, muddy and exhausted, yet alive. Eli's father knelt beside him, tears glistening in his eyes. "I should have believed you," he murmured. From that day forward, the old stone well became a symbol of courage, belief, and friendship. Eli and Sam returned often, not to play, but to remember the lessons learned, that fear is not weakness, that courage requires action, and that belief in oneself can overcome even the impossible. They climbed trees with more care, explored forests with awareness, and helped creatures in need, from trapped birds to stranded animals, understanding that every act of bravery, big or small, shaped their character. As the seasons changed, their adventures continued. In spring, they rescued a bird caught in brambles, working carefully to free it without harm. Summer brought long hikes to distant hills, teaching them observation and patience. Autumn's crisp air carried new challenges as they navigated leaf-strewn trails and icy streams, rescuing a family of ducks caught behind a fallen branch. Winter tested their resilience as snow and ice transformed familiar paths into treacherous mazes, yet they applied the lessons of the well with wisdom and teamwork. Eli's courage was not a one-time event, but a habit nurtured through repeated choices. He learned that true bravery combines careful thought with decisive action. Sam, once reckless, grew more thoughtful, balancing his daring nature with the discipline Eli exemplified. Together they became a team, guiding new friends like Leo, a timid boy who slowly found his own courage through their mentorship. Over the years, the village came to honor the story not with fame or titles, but with a quiet respect for the lesson it represented. Children reenacted the rescue, teachers used it as a lesson in observation and planning, and adults were reminded of the power of belief in youth. Eli, now older, guided the next generation with patience, humility, and clarity, teaching them that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. The forest and the old well remained constant, witnesses to countless adventures, lessons, and small triumphs. Eli reflected often on the day that tested his limits, understanding that the true miracle was not just saving a friend, but discovering the strength within himself, a strength that could be shared, nurtured, and passed on to others. Courage, he realized, was not loud or celebrated. It was quiet, steady, and deeply human. It was the inner voice that said, "I will try, even when the world doubts you." Through the years, Eli and Sam continued to explore, rescue, teach, and inspire. The memory of the well, the adventures in the forest, and the acts of courage, both big and small, shaped them into men of integrity, wisdom, and empathy. Their friendship remained unbroken, a testament to shared experiences, trust, and the power of belief. In every small act of kindness, in every moment of decisive action, in every challenge met with thought and courage, Eli saw the lesson of that fateful day reflected, that true bravery is not measured by strength or recognition, but by the willingness to act when it matters most, guided by faith in oneself and care for others. And with this understanding, he moved through life with confidence, compassion, and an unshakable belief that even the smallest person can achieve the impossible. The village, the forest, and the old wells stood as silent witnesses to this journey, a reminder to all who passed by that courage is timeless, that belief can change destinies, and that friendship and determination are forces stronger than fear. And as Eli looked toward the horizon, he knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he would always face them with the same heart that had saved his best friend long ago from the depths of the dark, cold well. Because in the end, it was not just a story of rescue, but a story of the power of faith, hope, courage, and unwavering belief in oneself. A story that would echo across generations, inspiring countless others to act bravely, dream boldly, and never give up, no matter the odds.
The sunlight spilled over the village like liquid gold, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets where children ran with laughter echoing off the walls. Eli and Sam, now slightly older, ventured through the forest with a careful awareness they had honed over years of adventure. Each leaf, each rustling branch seemed to speak a language of caution and discovery. Birds darted overhead, their songs punctuating the rhythm of their footsteps, and squirrels paused to observe the two boys as if recognizing the courage that radiated from them. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, mingling with the earthy aroma of damp moss and pine. As they wandered deeper, Eli noticed a narrow stream, barely trickling under a bridge of tangled roots. The water glimmered, reflecting fragments of the sky. "Look, Sam," Eli said softly. "This is like the beginning of another adventure. Let's be careful here." Sam grinned, his eyes sparkling with excitement, but he nodded in understanding, trusting Eli's judgment. They followed the stream until it widened into a small pool, where sunlight danced on the water like liquid diamonds. There a young fawn struggled to free itself from a clump of reeds near the bank. Eli approached slowly, whispering calming words, while Sam gathered nearby sticks to help pry the reeds apart without hurting the delicate creature. The fawn trembled, but gradually relaxed as the boys worked in unison, their movements deliberate, their hearts aligned with the rhythm of nature. Once free, the fawn bounded into the forest, pausing briefly as if to nod in gratitude before disappearing into the thicket. As they continued, Eli reflected on how courage was not always about facing immediate danger, but also about patience, observation, and the willingness to help when action was required. He realized that each small rescue, each careful decision reinforced the lessons of the well, that bravery was a habit cultivated over time, not a single heroic act. Further along the path, they encountered Leo, a timid new boy in the village, who watched them from the edge of the trees. His eyes were wide with awe, but there was a tremor of fear in his hands. Eli knelt down to his level and smiled. "It's okay to feel scared," he said. "Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about what you do despite that fear." Leo hesitated, but the gentle tone of Eli's voice, paired with the calm presence of Sam, gave him the confidence to step forward. Together, they navigated the uneven terrain, teaching Leo to observe the environment, to step carefully, and to trust his own instincts. As the sun climbed higher, the forest revealed hidden wonders: a family of rabbits darting through the underbrush, birds nesting in the hollows of oak trees, and a fox silently watching from a distance. Each encounter was a lesson, reinforcing the interconnectedness of life and the responsibility that came with courage. Eli taught Leo to move quietly, to notice patterns in the environment, and to anticipate potential dangers without succumbing to panic. By the end of the day, Leo had transformed, his initial fear replaced with a budding confidence rooted in understanding and action. Returning to the village, the boys encountered a gathering near the town square. A sudden storm had washed out part of the riverbank, threatening the crops and homes downstream. Eli and Sam quickly organized a small group of villagers, instructing them on how to reinforce the banks using sandbags, planks, and rope. Each person followed their guidance, amazed at the calm authority the boys displayed. The rain poured, yet Eli remained composed, directing efforts with precision, ensuring everyone's safety. When the waters receded, the village had been saved from disaster, and the villagers' respect for Eli and Sam grew not from heroics, but from practical courage and thoughtful leadership. In the following weeks, the village elders invited Eli to share his experiences at the school, where children crowded eagerly around him. He recounted the day of the well, the countless adventures since, and the small acts of bravery that had shaped his understanding of courage. He emphasized that bravery was not loud or flashy, but often quiet, thoughtful, and compassionate. The children listened intently, absorbing each lesson, inspired by the possibility that even they, small and ordinary, could make a difference in the world. One autumn evening, the forest took on a magical hue, with leaves glowing shades of gold, crimson, and amber. Eli, Sam, and Leo wandered through the trees, discovering an old abandoned cabin partially hidden behind a thicket of brambles. Curiosity and respect guided their exploration. Inside, they found journals, maps, and sketches left by past villagers, chronicling their own small acts of courage and daily challenges. They realized that bravery was timeless, a thread connecting generations across centuries. They spent days cataloging and preserving the artifacts, learning not just from their own experiences, but from the wisdom of those who had come before. Winter brought new challenges. Snow blanketed the forest, turning familiar paths into slippery white mazes. The boys encountered a trapped fox, its paw caught beneath a fallen branch. With careful planning and teamwork, they lifted the branch, freed the fox, and watched it disappear into the woods. Each rescue reinforced the idea that courage required knowledge, observation, patience, and empathy. It was not a single moment, but a continuous practice, honed through repeated choices and reflection. Spring returned with life, growth, and new lessons. Eli and Sam guided younger children through the forest, teaching them how to move safely, notice details, and act with responsibility. They organized small missions, rescuing birds from thorny bushes, guiding lost animals back to their homes, and observing natural patterns to predict changes in weather. These lessons were not just practical, they were moral, emphasizing respect for life, the importance of collaboration, and the value of thoughtful action. One sunny afternoon, the boys discovered a hidden glade where flowers grew in profusion, and a small waterfall spilled into a crystal-clear pool. They decided to build a safe observation platform to study the flora and fauna without disturbing the delicate ecosystem. Working together, they measured, constructed, and documented their progress, learning that courage also involved foresight, planning, and respect for the environment. As the years passed, Eli matured into a young man, embodying the principles he had learned from his adventures. Courage, he understood, was a balance of fear and action, knowledge and instinct, self-belief and care for others. Sam remained his steadfast companion, their friendship a living testament to the power of shared experiences and mutual trust. Together, they continued to mentor the next generation, including Leo and other children who came to know the value of courage and wisdom. Through every season, every challenge, and every quiet act of bravery, Eli's story spread through the village. The stone well, once a symbol of fear, became a monument to hope, courage, and perseverance. Children and adults alike learned that true heroism was not about accolades, but about acting thoughtfully and courageously when it mattered most.
Even as Eli and Sam faced new challenges, whether a storm threatening the crops, an injured animal, or guiding a lost child safely home, the principles they had cultivated guided them. Each success, each careful choice, reinforced the understanding that courage is a lifelong journey. In the evenings, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Eli often sat quietly by the old well, reflecting on the journey. He thought of the darkness, the fear, the rope, and Sam's terrified eyes. But he also thought of hope, determination, and the unshakable belief that guided him to act. He understood that courage was not a moment, but a way of living, a practice of facing fear, helping others, and trusting oneself. The village, the forests, the fields, and the old well stood as silent witnesses to the unfolding of countless adventures, the growth of character, and the quiet heroism of a boy who believed. And as Eli looked to the future, he knew that no matter what lay ahead, he would face it with the same heart, steadfast, compassionate, and unwavering in belief that had carried him through the deepest darkness, guided him to lift a friend from the depths, and shaped a life that inspired others to be brave, thoughtful, and kind. Through this continuous journey, Eli's life became a living story of courage, empathy, and self-belief. A story passed down in the village not just as legend, but as a practical, everyday example of how bravery manifests in small and large acts alike. And in every child's eyes, every helping hand, every careful decision, the legacy of the boy who believed lived on, quietly teaching that anyone, no matter how small, could achieve the impossible if they acted with heart, wisdom, and unwavering determination. The following spring, the forest seemed to awaken with a new energy. Flowers of every color peeked through the fresh green carpet of moss, and birds sang in harmonies that made the boys stop and listen. Eli, Sam, and Leo wandered further than ever, discovering a hidden grove surrounded by towering ferns and flowering shrubs. Sunlight filtered through the canopy, painting the ground in dappled patterns that seemed almost magical. In the grove, they found a family of rabbits trapped in a tangle of thorny vines. The youngest rabbit whimpered, its tiny heart racing with fear. Eli knelt beside them, whispering softly, "Don't worry, we'll get you out safely." Sam gathered nearby branches and leaves to gently pry apart the thorns, while Leo carefully held the frightened rabbits so they wouldn't hurt themselves. Each movement was deliberate, slow, and filled with care, showing that courage was not just boldness, but also patience and thoughtfulness. When the rabbits finally bounded away, free and unafraid, the boys cheered quietly, feeling a deep satisfaction that came from helping rather than showing off. Later that day, they came across an ancient oak tree with a hollow trunk. Curious, Eli peered inside and found old carvings from children who had lived in the village generations ago. Names, dates, and small symbols of bravery adorned the wood. "Look at this, Sam," Eli whispered, his fingers tracing the etchings. "Courage has always been part of our village. We're just continuing the tradition." Sam nodded thoughtfully, realizing that their actions were part of a long chain of quiet heroism stretching back through time. As they explored, the boys discovered a creek where the water had carved small pools and waterfalls. A fox with a wounded paw tried to cross but slipped on the slick stones. Eli, without hesitation, guided a flat branch to create a bridge, while Sam and Leo encouraged the animal from the other side. Slowly, patiently, they led the fox to safety. The boys sat for a moment, catching their breath, feeling the familiar warmth of accomplishment. Courage, they realized, was measured not by recognition, but by the impact of their actions. Over the following weeks, the forest became their classroom. They mapped the trails, observed patterns of animals, and learned which plants were edible and which were medicinal. Every day was a lesson in responsibility, observation, and the quiet strength needed to act wisely. Even small acts like untangling a bird from a net or rescuing a hedgehog from a muddy trench reinforced the core principle that every life mattered and every act of courage counted. One afternoon, a sudden thunderstorm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sun and lightning flashing across the sky. Eli spotted a child from the village, separated from a group, standing frozen in fear by the edge of the river. Without thinking, he called to Sam and Leo. Together, they formed a line, holding on to each other to anchor themselves as they guided the frightened child to safety. The river's current was strong, and the wind threatened to knock them off balance, but their combined effort, trust, and careful movements kept everyone safe. When they finally reached solid ground, the child clung to Eli, tears mixing with the rain. "Thank you," the child whispered. Eli smiled, feeling the deep satisfaction that came from helping without expectation of reward.
As months passed, Eli's reputation as a quiet hero grew. He was never boastful, but his actions inspired others to act thoughtfully and bravely. Children in the village began to explore nature with guidance, helping animals, respecting the environment, and learning to trust their instincts. Sam continued to be his partner in all adventures, their friendship stronger than ever, while Leo, once timid and unsure, now led small groups of younger children, embodying the lessons he had learned from Eli and Sam. During one summer expedition, the boys discovered a series of caves hidden behind a waterfall. The water cascaded over the rocks, creating a cool mist that sparkled in the sunlight. Inside the caves, ancient drawings adorned the walls, simple sketches of people, animals, and acts of bravery. Eli realized that the forest held countless stories, each one a testament to courage, creativity, and the human spirit. They carefully documented each finding, treating the cave with reverence, understanding that knowledge and respect were forms of courage in themselves. Autumn brought shorter days and a crisp chill in the air. Eli and his friends noticed that animals were struggling to prepare for winter. They guided birds to safe nesting spots, helped squirrels gather nuts, and cleared small pathways so deer could travel safely. Even when the work was exhausting, the boys understood that courage was often quiet and persistent, not always dramatic or dangerous. Winter arrived with snow blanketing the forest, transforming familiar trails into icy challenges. A family of foxes became trapped near a frozen pond. Eli, Sam, and Leo carefully approached, breaking the ice and creating a safe path to the nearby forest. The foxes scampered away, leaving the boys cold, tired, but exhilarated by the knowledge that they had made a difference. Through each season, Eli reflected on the lessons learned since the day of the well. Fear, he understood, was inevitable, but inaction was a choice. Courage was cultivated through repeated decisions, careful observation, empathy, and the willingness to act
even when outcomes were uncertain. Every rescue, every small act of bravery reinforced the values that had guided him from childhood into adolescence. The village itself began to change, inspired by the boys' actions. Festivals celebrated courage. Children were encouraged to explore safely, and families shared stories of bravery from past generations. Eli often spoke to groups of children, recounting adventures, emphasizing that heroism was not about recognition, but about making thoughtful choices that protect and help others. One spring morning, as flowers bloomed and the air was filled with the scent of fresh earth, Eli, Sam, and Leo came across a wounded owl tangled in vines. Carefully, they freed the bird, noticing its delicate wings and wise eyes. The owl hooted softly, flying into the sky, and the boys watched until it disappeared. "Every life matters," Eli whispered, smiling at his friends. Sam and Leo nodded, understanding that courage was intertwined with respect for all living beings. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the boys grew into young men, their friendship enduring. They continued to mentor younger children, organize rescues, and explore the forest. Each action reinforced the principle that courage is not a one-time act, but a lifelong commitment to act with heart, wisdom, and care for others. Spring had fully arrived, and the forest was alive with the hum of insects and the gentle rustle of leaves. Eli, Sam, and Leo wandered toward a part of the forest they had never explored, where the trees grew taller and the canopy formed intricate patterns of light and shadow. A gentle stream flowed through the area, its waters clear and cold, reflecting the sky above. As they followed it, they discovered a small, frightened hedgehog trapped under a pile of fallen leaves and twigs. "Don't worry, little one," Eli whispered, kneeling carefully beside it. Sam and Leo helped lift the debris, being careful not to hurt the tiny creature. Once freed, the hedgehog sniffed their hands briefly before scurrying into the underbrush. The boys smiled, understanding that even the smallest acts of courage, like helping a tiny animal, contributed to a larger story of compassion and bravery. Further along, they encountered a narrow gorge with a rickety old bridge crossing over a rushing stream. A young girl from the village stood frozen at the edge, fear evident in her eyes. Eli approached her gently, speaking with calm assurance. "It's okay. We'll help you across safely. Step slowly and trust the rope." Together, the boys guided her across, stabilizing her at every step. The sound of rushing water and the trembling bridge made the task daunting, but their coordinated efforts ensured her safety. When she reached solid ground, she hugged Eli, whispering, "Thank you. I was so scared." Eli's heart swelled, realizing courage could inspire others and provide comfort beyond physical rescue. As the weeks progressed, Eli and his friends noticed that the forest was changing. Fallen branches blocked familiar trails, nests had been disturbed, and some animals were struggling to find food. Understanding that bravery also meant taking responsibility, the boys organized daily missions to restore balance. They cleared paths, rebuilt nests, and guided lost animals back to safety. Each day, they reflected on how courage required both initiative and persistence, not just spontaneous heroics.
One late afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the trees, Eli spotted a fox kit struggling to climb a steep embankment. The young animal's small claws slipped repeatedly, and it looked ready to give up. Eli carefully lowered a rope while Sam and Leo supported from below. Slowly, deliberately, they helped the fox reach higher ground. The sense of accomplishment was quiet but profound, teaching them that patience and careful planning were essential components of courage. The village noticed the boys' efforts, and more children joined their expeditions. Together, they formed small groups, learning to navigate the forest safely, respect wildlife, and act bravely in unexpected situations.
Eli emphasized that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act responsibly despite it. The forest became a living classroom, with every tree, stream, and creature offering a lesson in bravery, empathy, and observation. During summer, a series of heavy rains caused the river to swell dangerously. A mother duck and her ducklings were stranded on a rapidly rising bank. Eli, Sam, and the group of children quickly devised a plan. They fashioned a makeshift raft from fallen logs and vines. Carefully, they guided the family across the river, ensuring each duckling made it safely. The children cheered quietly, realizing that courage also involved teamwork and trust in others. Autumn arrived with a crisp chill and a golden canopy overhead. Eli and Sam discovered an abandoned beehive knocked from a tree. Bees buzzed in panic, and a young boy nearby flinched in fear. Eli instructed everyone to move slowly, respecting the bees' space, while Sam gently guided the bees back toward the hive using leaves and sticks. The boy observed in awe, learning that courage could also mean calmness under pressure and respect for all creatures, not just physical bravery. Winter brought snow and ice, transforming familiar paths into treacherous trails. One morning, Eli noticed a small fawn trapped in a drift of snow, unable to move. Without hesitation, he and Sam guided Leo to help dig a path, being careful not to injure the fragile creature. Step by step, they cleared a safe route, and the fawn bounded away, leaving the boys breathless and exhilarated. They laughed quietly, understanding that true courage was continuous, quiet, and mindful. As the years went by, Eli reflected on how each season had taught a lesson. Courage was not a single act, but a collection of choices made consistently. He realized that bravery was about empathy, awareness, preparation, and action, and that it could inspire others quietly without fanfare. Sam remained his loyal companion, always daring yet thoughtful, while Leo had grown into a confident young leader, teaching new children the principles he had learned. The forest became a tapestry of stories. The old well, once a symbol of fear, now stood as a reminder that courage could transform both individuals and communities. Children learned to observe, care, and act responsibly. Villagers shared tales of the boys' adventures, emphasizing not fame or recognition, but the values of perseverance, kindness, and courageous action. One spring evening, the trio discovered a hidden meadow with a pond, surrounded by wildflowers and buzzing insects. They noticed a young swan tangled in reeds, struggling to free itself. Eli knelt and whispered, "We'll help you. Be calm." Sam and Leo assisted carefully, guiding the swan out without harm. The swan stretched its wings, glided across the pond, and disappeared into the distance. The boys watched silently, feeling the profound satisfaction of courage expressed through compassion. As Eli grew older, his adventures continued, but his focus shifted toward mentoring. He guided children through forests, rivers, and meadows, teaching observation, patience, teamwork, and bravery. Sam and Leo continued alongside him, ensuring that each child learned not just to act, but to think, plan, and respect life in all its forms. Through countless rescues, quiet lessons, and the simple acts of helping animals or assisting friends, Eli's story became a living legend. Not a legend of fame, but of everyday courage, empathy, and integrity. The lessons of the well, the forest, and the countless challenges faced over the years were embedded in every action he took. Courage had become a lifestyle, a continuous practice that shaped not only him, but the entire village.
Even as he walked through the forest in adulthood, Eli often paused to reflect on the boy he once was, scared, determined, and full of hope. He remembered Sam's laughter, Leo's timid curiosity, and the countless creatures they had helped along the way. Every rescue, every careful choice, every teaching moment reaffirmed the truth that courage was quiet, continuous, and deeply connected to care for others. And so, the village thrived, the forest flourished, and the legacy of Eli, Sam, and Leo continued to inspire new generations. Children learned that true bravery lies in thoughtful action, persistent effort, and compassionate heart, and that even the smallest person could make a meaningful difference in the world.
The following summer, the forest seemed more alive than ever. Bees hummed busily over wildflowers, and dragonflies danced across the streams. Eli, Sam, and Leo ventured toward a part of the woods that sloped down into a deep, shadowed valley. Sunlight pierced the canopy in thin shafts, illuminating patches of moss, flowers, and the occasional sparkling dew. In the valley, they discovered a small family of raccoons struggling to find food. A fallen tree had blocked their path, and the mother raccoon's frantic calls echoed off the valley walls. Eli quickly assessed the situation. "We can help them," he said, his voice calm but urgent. Sam nodded, and Leo gathered sticks and stones to carefully create a new path for the raccoons. Step by step, the animals found their way back to safety. The boys watched in quiet satisfaction as the mother raccoon paused, sniffed the air, and disappeared with her young into the shadows. Continuing along the stream, they noticed a young otter stuck in a small whirlpool. Its struggles grew desperate, and Eli didn't hesitate. He called Sam and Leo, and together they formed a human chain, each boy supporting the other to reach the water without falling in themselves. Carefully, they guided the otter to calmer waters. When the otter finally swam free, it chattered and twirled in delight, and the boys laughed, feeling the joy that comes from helping another being survive. That afternoon, they stumbled upon an overgrown meadow where wildflowers swayed in the breeze. At its edge stood an old stone well, its surface covered in moss. Eli approached it slowly, remembering the day that had started his journey. He ran his hand over the cool stone, thinking of fear, courage, and all the lessons learned since. Sam and Leo joined him, and together they reflected on how their actions had not only saved lives, but also inspired others to act responsibly and bravely. Nearby, a group of children from the village played, laughing as they chased butterflies. Eli walked toward them, gently guiding them to observe the wildlife rather than disturb it. Courage, he explained, is not just about action, it's about understanding, patience, and respect. Every small choice matters. The children nodded, beginning to see that bravery could be expressed in simple, thoughtful actions every day. As the day turned to evening, the sky painted itself in shades of pink and gold. The boys followed a narrow path back to the village, discovering a wounded squirrel along the way. Carefully, they created a sling from leaves and vines, supporting the animal as they transported it to safety. Each small rescue reinforced the principle that courage is cumulative, made up of countless small decisions and compassionate acts. The seasons continued, each bringing new lessons. Winter snow made paths slippery and rivers dangerous, yet Eli, Sam, and Leo found ways to guide lost animals, clear trails, and help their fellow villagers. Spring brought floods and heavy rains, and the boys organized teams to protect crops and homes. Summer heat required careful attention to water sources and animal safety, while autumn called for preparation, observation, and planning to ensure all creatures were ready for the cold months.
Through all of it, Eli reflected on the meaning of bravery.
He remembered the day of the well, the countless animals rescued, and the friends he had guided safely through danger. Courage, he realized, was not the absence of fear, but the thoughtful, persistent choice to act despite it. It required empathy, preparation, observation, and above all, care for others. One early autumn morning, Eli, Sam, and Leo discovered a nest of fledgling birds fallen from their tree. The chicks were weak and shivering. Eli carefully gathered them, whispering softly, while Sam and Leo constructed a safe platform in the branches. The chicks were returned to their nest unharmed. Watching them settle, Eli smiled. Each act, each careful decision, reinforced the idea that bravery is interwoven with compassion and responsibility. As the years went on, the boys' influence spread. Other children in the village learned to respect the forest, to help animals in need, and to act with courage and thoughtfulness. The story of Eli's first heroic act, the rescue from the well, became a tale told alongside lessons about patience, empathy, and the importance of small actions. The village recognized that heroism is not about fame or accolades, but about consistent, mindful choices that help others. One late spring evening, Eli, Sam, and Leo came upon a sparkling waterfall cascading into a hidden pool. The water shimmered with reflections of the surrounding trees, birds, and flowers. A deer had been trapped behind a fallen branch, and its frightened eyes met theirs. With calm movements and careful coordination, the boys guided the deer back to safety. The forest seemed to hold its breath, acknowledging the quiet heroism unfolding among the sunlight and shadows. Even as Eli and his friends grew older, they continued to explore, rescue, and teach. New challenges arose. A fox trapped under snow, a child lost in the woods, or a nest threatened by storms, but their principles remained unchanged. Courage was continuous action, guided by knowledge, empathy, and observation. They learned that true bravery was not about recognition, but about ensuring safety and well-being for all. Over time, Eli's influence became deeply rooted in the village. Festivals celebrated acts of courage. Children were encouraged to explore safely, and families shared stories of thoughtful heroism. Each new generation learned that bravery is measured not in feats of strength, but in the combination of heart, mind, and action. Through every season, challenge, and quiet rescue, Eli, Sam, and Leo taught that courage was a lifelong journey. The well, the forests, and the hidden meadows stood as witnesses to the countless lessons learned. Children who once feared the forest now explored with curiosity and care, inspired by the boys' example. And in every thoughtful action, every rescue, and every careful decision, the legacy of the boy who believed endured, quietly teaching that anyone, regardless of age or size, can make a meaningful difference.
As spring turned into summer, the forest was brimming with life. Eli, Sam, and Leo decided to explore a part of the woods where sunlight barely touched the forest floor, creating a mystical atmosphere. Here, ancient trees towered over them, their branches intertwined like a protective canopy. The boys moved cautiously, listening to the rustle of leaves and the distant calls of hidden animals. Suddenly, a frightened fawn stumbled into a shallow ravine, unable to climb back up. Eli quickly assessed the terrain and whispered, "We need to create a safe path for her." Sam gathered long, sturdy branches while Leo carefully guided the fawn,
encouraging it with gentle words. Step by step, they fashioned the small ramp using rocks, logs, and leaves. Finally, the fawn scrambled up, landing safely on the forest floor. It paused, sniffed the air, and bounded away, leaving the boys silently proud of their teamwork and ingenuity. Further along, they came across a hollow tree with a nest of baby owls teetering precariously on a branch. A gust of wind threatened to knock the nest down. Eli, standing on a moss-covered rock, reached up carefully while Sam and Leo stabilized the tree trunk. With slow, deliberate movements, they secured the nest with vines and leaves, ensuring the owlets remained safe. The owls blinked their big, round eyes at the boys, who felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Every rescue, no matter how small, reinforced the lesson that courage is patient, thoughtful, and compassionate. As they continued, the boys stumbled upon a hidden pond, its water sparkling under the sun. A family of ducks was trapped on a tiny island in the middle of the pond, unable to reach the shore because of a fallen tree branch. Eli waded in cautiously, using a long stick to guide the ducks safely back. Sam and Leo positioned themselves along the banks to ensure the ducks didn't panic. Slowly, one by one, the ducks made it to safety. The boys laughed quietly, knowing that even in small acts, courage manifests itself. The forest was full of lessons. Each day presented new challenges. Sometimes animals were in danger. Sometimes natural obstacles blocked their path. Sometimes fellow children needed guidance. Eli realized that courage was not only about action, but also observation and preparation. Understanding the environment and anticipating problems became as important as acting bravely. One hot summer afternoon, Eli and his friends noticed smoke rising from a distant part of the forest. A small fire had started, likely from a lightning strike. Without hesitation, they ran toward it, gathering sand and creating small fire breaks. Sam carried a bucket of water, while Leo helped move debris away from the flames. Working as a team, they managed to contain the fire until it died down naturally, preventing a disaster. Exhausted but satisfied, they sat under a large oak tree, reflecting on the importance of courage, responsibility, and quick thinking. Later, they discovered a narrow gorge with a rushing stream where a young fox had slipped and injured its leg. Eli carefully examined the fox, while Sam fashioned a small splint from twigs, and Leo helped keep the fox calm. Together, they guided the animal to a safe area with soft grass. The fox stayed for a moment, looking back at the boys as if to say thank you before disappearing into the shadows. It was another reminder that courage often comes in quiet, patient forms, and not every heroic act is recognized.
Autumn arrived, painting the forest in brilliant oranges and reds. Leaves fell like soft rain, covering the paths. Eli, Sam, and Leo noticed a family of rabbits struggling to find shelter before the cold set in. They helped gather branches and leaves to build small burrows, providing warmth and protection for the animals. Every leaf placed and every careful movement reinforced the lesson that courage involves foresight and care for others. One crisp morning, the boys heard a child crying near the riverbank. A sudden flash of memory from their own childhood ran through Eli's mind. The well, the fear, the courage it had taken to act. The child had wandered too far and was stuck on a slippery rock in the middle of the river. Eli shouted instructions calmly, while Sam extended a branch and Leo steadied the rocks for support. Slowly, carefully, they guided the child to safety. When the child was finally on solid ground, they hugged Eli tightly. It was another moment that showed bravery is intertwined with empathy, patience, and calculated action. Winter brought snow, turning familiar trails into white corridors. Eli, Sam, and Leo continued their explorations, helping animals trapped in icy water or buried under snow. One day, they discovered a family of hedgehogs huddled together in a hollow log. The entrance was blocked by snow and ice. Eli carefully chipped away at the ice while Sam and Leo ensured the log remained stable. When the hedgehogs were finally free, they waddled into the underbrush, disappearing from sight. Each act, large or small, emphasized the lesson that courage is continuous, consistent, and thoughtful. As years passed, Eli reflected on all the experiences, from the well rescue that had started everything to the countless animals saved and children guided through the forest. He realized that courage is not a moment, but a lifelong journey. Every decision, every small act of bravery, and every patient effort contributed to a larger tapestry of kindness and heroism. The forest itself seemed to respond to the boys' actions. Animals became accustomed to their presence, trails became safer, and younger children joined them in exploration and rescue. Festivals in the village celebrated these acts quietly, emphasizing the importance of everyday courage, empathy, and careful thought. On a warm spring evening, Eli, Sam, and Leo discovered a hidden glade where wildflowers of every hue swayed in the wind. In the center, a young deer was stuck in a tangle of vines. Eli whispered encouragement while Sam untangled the branches and Leo guided the deer to open grass. The animal paused for a moment, its eyes meeting Eli's, then leapt gracefully into the forest. Watching it disappear, Eli felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that true courage is measured by the lives touched and the thoughtful actions taken. Through countless seasons, rescues, and quiet moments in the forest, Eli, Sam, and Leo continued their journey. They learned that courage was not about recognition, but about making deliberate, empathetic choices. They inspired a new generation of children, showing that even the smallest individuals can impact the world through compassion, patience, and bravery.
And so, the legend of Eli, the boy who saved his friend from the well, evolved into a living, breathing tale of persistent courage. Each act, whether guiding a frightened fox, rescuing a child, or helping a tiny hedgehog, reinforced the timeless truth. Bravery is a combination of heart, mind, and action, and anyone can cultivate it through empathy, thoughtfulness, and courage. The forest thrived, the village grew closer together, and Eli, Sam, and Leo became examples of continuous, quiet heroism. Children learned not only to act bravely, but to observe, respect, and think critically, realizing that courage is not a single event, but a way of life.